The 2002 World Cup is without a doubt one of the most important World Cups of all time. It was a tournament marked by one of the most dominating performances by the eventual winners and also by several upset victories. That month of June really felt like a glitch in a simulation, and today I'm gonna show you why this World Cup is one of the most contentious of all time and how it changed football forever. So without further ado, let's get right to it. It was a controversial decision to host a tournament in Asia, especially considering that Japan had never even qualified to the World Cup at the time they were selected as hosts, and although South Korea had participated in several World Cup editions, they still hadn't won a match, let alone progressed past the group stage. However, the atmosphere during that month of June was terrific, and both Japan and South Korea ultimately proved that they can be seen as footballing nations as well. There was no need for paid actors like we saw in Qatar. Right from the opening day, where Senegal shocked France, the 2002 World Cup was full of surprises. The reigning champions France exited the tournament without a goal in perhaps the worst title defense of all time, but they were not alone in falling early against the odds. Portugal's golden generation returned to the granted stage after 16 long years, but lost against the USA in a match where everything that could go wrong went wrong. And then again against South Korea, where Jung-Hwan, the protagonist of the most violent love story of all time, punched the referee in the gut. While Argentina also fell at the first hurdle thanks to a defeat to England and a draw with Sweden. And although Germany were clear favorites against Saudi Arabia, no one would have guessed they would beat them 8-0, inspired by closest hat-trick of headers. Normally the surprises would end here, but in the round of 16, the glitches in the simulation continued. Despite finishing above England and Argentina in the group of death, the Swedes' early success would only permit them one more round in the competition before golden goal defeat to Senegal would end their run. Italy, meanwhile, would fall at the same stage, losing a highly controversial round of 16 tie to South Korea. And Jung-Hwan would even have his contract terminated at Perugia for his 117th minute golden goal winner. But it was referee Byron Moreno of Ecuador who would go down in history as one of the most corrupt refs of all time, ruling out a perfectly good Italian goal prior to Juan's winner and sending off Francesco Totti for a perceived dive. Add in a number of other disputed incidents, and it's clear why the result is still disputed by many Italian supporters. Nonetheless, it's still a bit ironic to hear Italians complaining about corruption. But Korea wasn't done, and they would extend their historic run into the semi-finals after beating Spain on penalties in another infamous match where the ref ruled out 2 Spanish goals by offside. On the other hand, you also had an inspired Turkish side who survived Brazil's group and made it all the way to the semis, beating Japan, Senegal, before being eliminated by the only team who beat them in the entire competition. Tying up to the shocking results I've already mentioned, this World Cup showed that the football talent was spreading and that the big nations would have to up their game in the following years if they didn't want to be surpassed. It provided us a window to another side of football that we haven't realized it existed, and overnight, everyone knew the great leadership qualities of Aliou Cissé and Myung-bo, the emerging talents of Landon Donovan and Junichi Inamoto, and the glove work of Ruud Hesper. While these performances helped make this World Cup a unique tournament, there were also 2 big redemption stories. David Beckham had been directly responsible for the 3 Lions reaching the tournament with his terrific display against Greece in qualifying. Still, England's hopes for this World Cup were clouded with his metatarsal injury that prevented him from playing at his best. However, his penalty against Argentina, given everything that had occurred 4 years earlier when he was sent off for a kick on Diego Simeone, saw the Manchester United player finally put those goals to rest. Although this story is impressive, it still pales in comparison to the one of Ronaldo Nazario, who was rushed back to fitness just in time for the tournament after nearly 4 years on the sidelines to finish as the top scorer and man of the match in the final. It is still to this day one of the best comeback stories of all time, especially considering that he had also suffered a seizure hours before the previous World Cup final, which prevented him from giving his all. But if we're gonna talk about the beautiful aspects from this tournament, we also gotta mention the ugly. And boy, there were a lot of bad things happening. No matter how impressive South Korea's run was, it will always be tainted by several refereeing mistakes in their matches. While their win against Portugal wasn't that unfair, their matches against Italy and Spain were clearly rigged in their favor. And the worst part is that the referee that made all the bad calls in that match against Italy was later suspended several times for suspicions of corruption and was even arrested for smuggling drugs into the US. And who could forget Rivaldo's Oscar-worthy performance in the semi against Turkey? Almost every neutral fan deemed that behavior disgusting, and it's a shame that players faking and overreacting injuries became the norm nowadays. This wasn't the only scandal that involved the Brazilian national team, as in the round of 16 bout against Belgium, the Red Devils were robbed of a perfectly legitimate goal when the ref claimed that Mark Wilmots had fouled Brazil's Hulk Jr. before scoring. Either way, we gotta give credit to Brazil. Their coach Scolari had been in the job just a year, having been called in to rescue Brazil from a disappointing qualifying campaign. He did just that and created a family in the process, keeping the players more united than they had ever been. And despite having an accessible group stage, the Brazilians had to beat England's golden generation in the quarterfinals, a gritty Turkey side that fought until the end, and ultimately a Germany squad that, despite not being at their best, still showed immense quality during that month. Besides, the Brazilians were just on another level, clearly above everyone else. Ronaldinho about to hit his prime, Rivaldo at his best, and Ronaldo determined to show everyone that he can still be the best in the world after his long hiatus, were the power up front, while Roberto Carlos and Cafu, one of the best fullback partnerships of all time, assisted for them. They were one of the most dominating champions of all time, and one of the few squads to win the tournament, only registering wins without needing extra time. In the end, the best team won. The world realized that football isn't just played in Europe or South America, which ultimately served as a first step for FIFA to turn the sport into a global game. A lot of good things were learned with this tournament, but a lot of the bad things that happened around this period stuck around, and it's a shame that FIFA is yet to learn from their mistakes. Diving and faking injuries, refereeing scandals, and perhaps most importantly, picking tournament hosts only thinking about financial gain are all still happening today, and it all came to light in 2002. But what about you? What memories do you have about this tournament? Leave your feedback in the comments and let's start the discussion. Don't forget to like the video if you want to watch more content like this, and subscribe so you never miss the most interesting football discussions, stories, and news. Thank you for watching until the end, I appreciate you, and I will see you soon.